Well, excuse this disruption. I'm Jared Wicks. Brandon, New Era Stadium in Buffalo, New York is no more. And Tushy, the makers of a bidet you can install at your house, has put in a bid of $12.5 million to name the Buffalo Bills Stadium Tushy Stadium, provide the parking lot with porta potties, as well as try to encourage a college football bowl game known as the Toilet Bowl to come to Buffalo. Do you like that idea?
I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. That'd be great marketing. Tushy, let's do it. Tushy Stadium in Orchard Park. I'm down. Let's do it.
All right, that's some sports talk for you, but we got a lot more crap to get to in the world of professional wrestling as the Heel to the Face podcast starts right now.
So silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Brandon and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. We're in the middle of July, the baseball all-star break, if you will. The NASCAR all-star break, Brandon was telling me, happened last night. But either way, for the most part, no break because sports is trying to get started in some aspects while wrestling keeps pushing on. We'll talk about if wrestling should maybe come to a stop eventually, maybe here or there. But either way, this is the Heel to the Face podcast. We'll keep moving on with Brandon the Icebreaker Clements. You can find him on Twitter at Icebreaker21. You can find myself at KRock Jared. And I guess that's where we will start things before we get into the world of professional wrestling is what's going on. I'll just, it's kind of like a weekly thing. We just keep talking about it. I know the news never really changes, but with the way the cases of COVID are going up in Florida and things are starting to really heighten up, do you think WWE feels the pressure to put their product on hold, or do you think it's still just full speed ahead?
I'm going to say it's full speed ahead. Not to get too far into the political realm, but there was a lot of misreporting out there. So, yes, the cases have been rising. That's absolutely true. But there is some misleading information out there. So, yes, the numbers they're growing, and this whole coronavirus is obviously still not a good thing. We've been dealing with this since mid-March, even further back, but we've been on hold for no sports or anything since mid-March. And WWE's just kind of done things the way they've always done it, except for no fans. They just moved it to either Full Sail or the Performance Center. So it's not going to change because everything is in-house. So I don't see it changing. Now I do. Speaking of COVID, I got to ask you this: Austin Aries. Do you think Austin Aries was one of those COVID positive tests? Because he hasn't been around, or is it something else?
No, I mean I'm not sure. With Austin Aries, I've heard some rumors here and there, but I mean I don't want to speculate. I don't really know much about what's going on with him.
Yeah, I'll just kind of add to it. I mean, of course, there's this whole thing going on, like these hashtags going on all over. I mean, Velveteen Dream hasn't been seen.
Well, yeah, when it comes to that, I know all about the sexual problems that a lot of wrestlers are having. Sexual harassment problems, I guess, is the better way to put that.
The only names I've heard that have gotten COVID, positive tests for COVID, Renee Young, we know that, Caitlin Braxton, and then 2 backstage producers. I believe one of them was Jamie Noble, if I'm not mistaken. But besides that, I haven't heard any other names. I mean, they're kind of keeping it close to the vest, it seems like.
So getting back to the world of wrestling as it's happening, AEW was live this past week for AEW Fight for the Fallen. 2 pay-per-views, I guess. This one felt more like a Dynamite, the championship match there at the end. Brian Cage, his first championship match. Or was that his first match? I wasn't even thinking. I want to say he had a match a few weeks ago that he squashed some guy.
Yeah, he's had one official match, which I believe was the replacement match. He wasn't supposed to wrestle up until the Mox fight, but he took Mox's opponent because Mox stayed home with to take care of the COVID precautions, of course.
So what do you think of the story last night as throwing in the belt or throwing in the towel for Brian Cage, helping Jon Moxley retain the AEW championship?
I like it. I think it's not a clean loss, so to speak, because like he didn't tap, he didn't get the 1, 2, 3. I think it's an easy out. It's a very disappointing out, but I think it's an easy out nonetheless. So they can reconfigure what they want to do, and then make the next move. Which we just saw Darby Allin's back. I mean, what are your thoughts on Darby Allin's return?
I think that's the next move, Jon Moxley and Darby Allin. I guess my question that I have with this is, where do you see the dichotomy with Taz and Brian Cage? Do you see Brian Cage being upset with Taz because of this? Do you see them still being a strong unit? I mean, because he threw in the towel for him, essentially. So, a lot of times in the world of professional wrestling, that's where you see, kind of some dissension. And so it was kind of strange because, Brian Cage, to be honest with you, didn't really appear to be in a lot of distress when he did it. It wasn't like the 94 back in the day where, Owen Hart encouraged the family to throw in the towel for Bret Hart and stuff like that.
No, I don't think there's going to be any dissension. I think the way they're building the Machine and Taz's relationship, I think he trusts Taz, and I think he's going to look at it like, all right, you're saving me, from maybe more destruction, being in that submission hold any longer. I think that's where they're going to go with it. I don't think it's going to be any dissension. I think the Machine and I think Taz, I think they're going to be a unit for a while.
I think it kind of makes me think of like the Brock Lesnar Paul Heyman situation, and if Paul Heyman ever threw in the towel for Brock Lesnar, how great. Essentially, I don't see Brock Lesnar after that match saying, yeah, Paul Heyman knows the best. No, I would see them breaking up immediately. That would be a storyline right then and there.
I think it's a different animal, pun intended, I guess. With Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, because Brock Lesnar is a main attraction. As much as I'm not a big fan of his work in the WWE at this point. But there's a lot of reports out there that SummerSlam was supposed to be him and Edge as the main event, but WWE doesn't want to waste the main attraction, quote unquote, of Brock Lesnar in front of no fans. So that's why you're not seeing much Brock Lesnar. It makes
also in the current situation. A lot of people were obviously saying it was supposed to be the third match too, obviously between Randy Orton and Edge at SummerSlam, and a lot of matches, a lot of stuff getting scrapped for SummerSlam because you're not going to pay the top dollar. If you can still put on the same show as this weekend's Extreme Rules or Money in the Bank or any of these other pay-per-views, because essentially you're going to get the same return because you're not getting fans, you're not getting that same build-up. So there's no real point in bringing back Brock Lesnar or any of these other people. And frankly, I can understand fully with WWE. I'm in the camp of SummerSlam, or any of these major pay-per-views shouldn't be happening. We should just be holding off. But it is what it is. I guess we're at a point now where, what worse can they do? They've already, in my eyes, ruined a WrestleMania. And SummerSlam isn't as high on the card as WrestleMania. I felt it was going to probably be a big deal this year, but it is what it is, and it looks like it's just probably going to be a typical pay-per-view. And probably not even a real long one in my eyes. I feel like they're going to just probably keep it around the same length as the pay-per-views they've been keeping, under 3 or just above 3 hours.
Yeah, I think it's going to be right around that 2.5, 2:45 mark. I think and here's the thing. If there's one thing about this pandemic that's maybe made it a positive, is maybe WWE starts transitioning into more of these 2.5, 2 hour and 45-minute pay-per-views, because we've all seen it before. We've discussed it on the podcast many years ago when we first started doing this. What's the point of having an 8-hour WrestleMania? You know what I mean? Or having a 4-hour Extreme Rules, so to speak. Let's make it 2.5, 2 hours and 45 minutes, maybe 3 hours max, and then done. I think it's better that way. NXT's done a great job with that. The last few shows of NXT have beaten AEW. So they're doing something right. Let's keep it concise. Let's get the show on the road and go.
Speaking of pay-per-views, now I guess we can talk about this as a pro wrestling show, but UFC had a big pay-per-view this past Saturday night on Fight Island, and I'll agree with you what we were talking off air, that the pay-per-view itself may have not been the best when it comes to the result, but I think the presentation and everything that UFC was doing, they really beat wrestling in the aspect of, I watched that pay-per-view without a crowd, and I don't feel like I really missed out too much. I don't feel like it was too much different because there was no crowd. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's
pay-per-view.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, aside from the pay-per-view, especially the main event with Usman and Masvidal, that main event I don't think was really good. I know a lot of people in the Twitterverse and just the social media platforms were not happy about it. It was a very boring match. Overall, the card I think it was a letdown. Josie Aldo should just retire, for example. I mean, he didn't look very good. I don't think he just.
No,
So, I mean, overall, I mean, from the aesthetics, I guess, yes, they did a good job. Now, another sport that can do it very well is NASCAR. Now, NASCAR, they did do their All-Star race on Wednesday this week, and they had, I don't know the exact numbers, but from what I could see, probably, I would say at least 5,000 to 8,000 fans there. But before that, they've had no fans in attendance, and the races have been fine, and they've been entertaining, and a rookie last week just won a race. So I mean, they're still keeping things moving. They're another sport that you don't need fans. TBT with the basketball tournament that just concluded, that was pretty good. I think they did a good job with that. So I mean, we're just gonna have to wait to see what happens with the rest of the sports. But I think AEW and WWE are doing the best they can right now, considering the hand they're dealt.
I feel that wrestling so far has shown all these other ones you were talking about that it is the one that suffers the most without fans. And I don't necessarily think that, and I've talked about this to length, it is not just because it is without fans, but racing was done at a racetrack, okay? UFC, I mean, I guess it was still done in an octagon, in a typical setting. But WWE not being in an arena, meaning that they can't have their full-size stage, meaning that they can't have the pyro. That I think is if WWE, I guess, was still in arenas, it's still like without fans in a big arena place. I might feel a little bit differently. Like I said, if they would have had WrestleMania at Raymond James Stadium with all the pirate ship and the Titantron and everything and the fireworks, but without fans, it might have been better. I mean, if they would have had some crowd noise brought in, some music, whatever. But it wasn't. And I said this a million times to people out there who say, what's the difference with or without fans? WrestleMania wasn't just WrestleMania without fans. It wasn't like I've been to WrestleMania and I've seen what it looks like when people leave, when everyone empties out of the stadium. That is not what this past year's WrestleMania looked like. It wasn't just, there was no fans. No, it was, I saw the edge of a warehouse wall, and I could see a ceiling fan that you typically see at a Dollar General over the middle of the ring. That, that's a little bit different than just saying it was without fans. But UFC, I thought the pay-per-view overall was pretty good when it comes to the presentation. You can't control the outcome of the matches. It's a real sport. Yeah. But UFC showed me that you don't necessarily need the fans in that aspect. And that shows me the difference between UFC and professional wrestling, because it is focused on the ring, and it's focused on what's inside the cage. I think with UFC, a lot of times they darken out the fans, and they're not really that loud, except for maybe in the final rounds when things get a little pumped up, and the seconds are ticking off. But for the most part, fans in UFC when fights first start are not that loud, and they kind of mic'd up the corners. So for the most part, it wasn't too bad. The prelims were pretty quiet, but during the main card, I didn't think it was too bad.
I'll say this. I'm just gonna hit 2 points on this. WWE, I think, is WWE, and I'd say AEW or any wrestling promotion, I would say the fans are a part of the show. You know what I mean? So it's another element to make wrestling as great as it is, because, I'm watching NXT from, this week, and normally you'd see, you see Keith Lee walking out, and he'd have the, bask in his glory, carrying the 2 belts out. But you don't get that, so you're missing that main ingredient. So I think that's why I don't think the wrestling's done as best as they could. I don't think it's been done great, but I don't think it's been done horribly. Now, one last thing with the UFC, I'll just kind of transition to that. The Ultimate Fighter was in front of nobody, really. You know what I mean? So they've had on FX for many years, the Ultimate Fighter was in front of nobody. You know what I mean? So fight fans are used to that. They're used to just locking in, listening to the corner, like you said, and just watching people, scrap it out. And that's why UFC hasn't seen in any I don't see negative effects from the the show because it's
And I can tell you what, it's kind of that same regard. I remember a couple years ago when Baltimore played that baseball game in front of no fans because of the protests that were going on in the city, so they felt it was unsafe. And they're saying, was it weird playing in front of no fans? And I don't think I know that people have this love affair with Major League Baseball and they don't really focus what's going on in the minor leagues, but I go to a lot of minor league baseball, and anyone who knows minor league baseball, they play a full slate of games. And while a lot of the people that might go to the games might only go to the games on Friday nights when it's packed and there's fireworks. On Tuesday afternoon they're playing, on Monday afternoon they're playing. I'm there a lot of those games, and all those players in the major leagues have gone through those ranks. And a lot of those players, if they haven't even gone through the minor league ranks, they've gone through the college ranks. And as big as college baseball can become World Series time, it's, again, a Tuesday afternoon on the college campus, not bringing in the biggest crowds, even the D1 programs. So baseball, I think, should probably not suffer too much playing in front of no crowds, because a lot of these guys should be pretty used to, when you play 160 games a year in college, in minors, in majors, you're going to have in your life played a game somewhere in some small town in front of absolutely nobody. It's kind of the same in wrestling. I mean, all these wrestlers have wrestled in front of essentially under 1,000 people in their lot.
For the most part.
Yes.
Wrestlers for the most part, the ones that have been on the indies. Not, even Randy Orton.
Wrestlers, even and the wrestling though, when they wrestle in front of small crowds, it is still more of a change, because that 1,000 people is very rowdy. Wrestlers rarely wrestle in front of quiet, bored crowds. I mean, baseball players have played in front of 1,000 people who are just sitting there watching the game. If you go to an indie wrestling show, 1,000 people, it's a shrunken venue, so it's just as condensed as WrestleMania, if not more condensed, and it's just as loud. I mean, it's literally like concerts. 1,000 people in a small concert venue or 20,000 people in a big venue. Either way, they're very loud.
Yeah, they're rowdy. And I'm glad you said indie wrestling, because me, we've talked about this, not even on the broadcast, maybe on the broadcast before, but that's why I don't go to WWE live shows here, the house shows in Syracuse, because the crowd, I don't think, really gets into it. You're just sitting there. It's not, I've never been to a WWE live show, in Syracuse where the crowd was like going nuts. It was like, I remember when Bray Wyatt he was doing dark matches, essentially. After he got rid of the Husky Harris, gimmick, he was starting to do the Bray Wyatt thing, and I'm all pumped up. I'm enjoying it because I know how good this guy is. And there's you can hear somebody drop a penny in the arena. So I have to agree with you. Indie wrestling is totally different. I went to a show a handful of years ago up in Auburn High School. It was one of those Northeast wrestling shows, and it was probably 600 people, maybe 500 people, and it was a raucous crowd. Everybody was having a good time. It was. You can feel the energy in there. Like, it was just a good time. So I have to agree. The indie wrestlers can kind of get used to it. But, I mean, from an entertainment standpoint, it's just different without fans there. Because you don't get to hear the boos, the cheers, the, holy shit, any of those things. So I can't wait until fans get back, because I'm excited for it. And maybe in a few months, you and I can go to a show together and be raucous and rowdy.
I'm going to pick up on what you just said about the chants. Now, what do you make of AEW's liberal use of the word you just said about the chants at WWE, the holy shit chants? What do you make of AEW's liberal use of that word in a lot of their programs lately? They've been using it a lot. They've been pushing the envelope, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I'm fine with it. I think it brings it back to the era that I grew up on with WWE, which is the TV14 era, where you could get away with saying or doing and saying certain things. I
feel like that was still a TVMA word. They definitely, WWE didn't even really use that.
Even words, the antics across the board, it was more edgy back, and that the Attitude Era was very edgy. I like the fact that you could call somebody like a pumpkin-headed bitch, on TV. Like Chris Jericho calls what's his face there, pumpkin-headed bitch. So it's
Excalibur. I know he calls Excalibur or Orange Cassidy.
Kenny Omega. I had to think about it for a second. He calls Kenny Omega a pumpkinhead. So that's why I like AEW more than I do WWE right now, because it's more edgy. Maybe NXT's won the ratings for the last couple weeks, but I still like AEW's product better right now. That's just me.
All right. Speaking of, we're gonna move over a little bit to the indie wrestling. We're just talking about that. So the indie wrestling that's going to happen in Syracuse on December the 20th. It is a reunion show for a company that ran right out of here at Syracuse. They won the Best Indie Federation 3 years in a row. Their ticket prices are going to be between $50 and $200. But more importantly, the tickets haven't even really gone on sale, and they're all but sold out. They've been just taking requests via Facebook. People have kind of been coming back and saying, like, I want this many tickets, and then they've been getting requests. They said when tickets do just go on sale to the general public, there'll be approximately 30 general admission tickets for sale. So with that being said, they're running it from the Pastime Athletic Club. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's just a small gymnasium. Can hold maybe 300 people, 400 people on top of each other. You know, no space kind of 400 people. Do you think 2CW should be running this from a bigger venue, or should they just be cashing in on this? Because I feel like they could probably, even with the prices, maybe get a few more seats. I know back in the day, Watertown used to be a huge home for them, and they used to run shows out of Watertown. In fact, their very first internet pay-per-view was run out of Watertown, where they had Matt Hardy on the card, Kevin Owens on the card, Tommaso Ciampa, like a bunch of other, AJ Styles. Do you think they should just stick with this? It kind of takes back to like WWE running Madison Square Garden for WrestleMania, where they sacrifice the maximum amount of money just for the nostalgia purpose. Or do you think that they should be running a bigger venue? Maybe not bigger where it's like the War Memorial and then there's empty seats. But do you think that they should be running a bigger venue, or do you like the idea of just maximizing the ticket prices and selling this place out?
This is a bad answer, but I'm going to say I'm kind of in the middle. Let me finish, though. I do like the nostalgic factor, so I think I'm going to lean more in that direction. But maybe like the SRC arena up at OCC could be another venue that you could do. It's not a huge arena, but it holds a few more fans than Pastime. So I'm kind of in the middle, but because of the history of 2CW, I think Pastime is the way to go because it's the nostalgia.
Gotcha. Well, now we move on to.
What do you think? I want to hear what you got.
I'm on the fence. I don't think SRC Arena might be a little too big. I wonder if there's like some sort of in between place where they can, because I guess the issue that I'm having here is, and some people I've talked to about this, it seems like this show is pretty much just when it says a love letter to the fans, directly to the fans that are going to pay top dollar to go. They're really making it, essentially pricing out just anybody who maybe never discovered 2CW and wants to maybe rediscover it again. It's pretty much just like, hey, this is for season ticket holders. If there was season ticket holders of 2CW back in the day, it's pretty much just catering to those guys. I mean, I imagine it's going to be an amazing show. They already said one match. They're going to have Too Cold Scorpio in WWE, who's known as Flash Funk. He's going to fight indie darling Slick Wagner Brown, who's been in the indies for ever and ever, who's just a great competitor. Spike Dudley's already announced he's going to be on the show. I can imagine there's going to be people like Brody Lee on the card. I imagine maybe even the Blade and the Butcher from AEW could be involved. Impact Wrestling's got Eddie Edwards. He's in that championship match this Saturday, Slammiversary, but he had a lot of time in 2CW. So there's definitely a few names on the list, but we're going to move over to Slammiversary. It is, can you believe it, the 16th Slammiversary this Saturday night. They're smart. They're putting it on Saturday. They're not trying to go up against WWE. Going on pay-per-view this Saturday night. I'm going to ask you an honest question before we get to the card or anything about the card. When it comes to Impact Wrestling, are you somebody out there who is just like a lot of people out there, and that you give in to promotion, you give in to advertising? Because, I mean, frankly, Impact Wrestling has been going on for a while now, and I guess I'm stumbling over my words here, trying to get to what I'm trying to get to, but AEW came on the scene. AEW is now the number 2 company. Why is Impact not the number 2 company? Are you somebody who just are like a lot of people watching AEW because they put it on TV, they put the big marketing behind it, they're really putting it full steam ahead against WWE, or do you really feel that it's a second product?
I think
do you watch Impact Wrestling because it's not promoted like AEW is promoted?
Yes and no. I would say AEW has the names. I would say bigger names than Impact Wrestling does. I mean, when you throw out the names like Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Jon Moxley, Lance Archer, Lucha Bros, just to name a few.
We'll say as much, though, about, like, Brian Cages of the world and, FTRs of the world and those kind of, especially Brian Cage, who just came from Impact Wrestling, is the fact that AEW has the names, but remember, some of these names that you're talking about, not Jon Moxley, the Young Bucks, or Kenny Omega, but some of these names you're talking about became names, I guess, in AEW, just naturally promoting them, because if you put that much time and effort into watching Impact Wrestling, they would essentially have some names as well. Obviously you watch any product and they've got the names. Why? Dolph Ziggler's a name to us because we watch WWE. If we didn't watch WWE, Dolph Ziggler's a nobody. And that's kind of the same with AEW. I mean, Sonny Kiss, Lance Archer. I feel like these people have gotten a real boost from AEW, and you know of them through organically. Like I say, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks, they made a name for themselves outside of the company. But within the company, I mean, I feel when it comes to because I have the card in front of me, and there's just a few people I'm just saying that I think would be very big names. I guess if they came to AEW, they would have that spotlight on them, and I don't think that they're any less now. I look at like women like Tyler Valkyrie. I look at Kimber Lee, who used to be in NXT. I look at Eddie Edwards. I look at former NXT, Perazzo, what's her name? Deonna Purrazzo.
Purrazzo.
I always mess up that name. But, I mean, obviously you had Brian Cage in there. You have Sami Callihan in there, who I feel would be a big star if he went over to AEW. These guys are, all on Impact stars. Austin Aries, I mean, obviously he spent a lot of time in Impact. I mean, he was a big name in WWE before he went over there, or a bigger name, somebody who was worth watching.
I mean, this is going in the weeds probably a little bit, but do you think there's a reason why these guys and gals didn't come from Impact to AEW? I mean, do you think AEW just didn't have their eye on them? Like, what do you think it is?
You can't AEW. You can't hire everybody. I mean, there's not necessarily a sports team. You don't have a limit, but essentially you do have a limit. You have a payroll just like anybody else. Yeah. And obviously too, there is contracts and loyalties. Some people can't go places because of contracts. They're locked here. They like where they are. They like their work schedule. That kind of thing. But I mean, Impact Wrestling is on Access TV every week, and while a lot of people don't get that channel, either way, it's able to be fine. They've been putting on weekly shows this whole time, and I guess what really makes it the most notable.
Have you watched?
I haven't watched too much. I watched one of their pay-per-views that was in front of nobody a couple months ago, Revolution. But I guess the reason I bring this up now is because we're in the environment we're in now with WWE and AEW wrestling in front of no fans, Impact Wrestling doesn't look any different. I guess that's what I'm saying is if you were to watch Impact Wrestling, you wouldn't know the difference, especially too. I mean, that used to be the thing back in the day, as Impact Wrestling used to run in front of the Impact Zone in Orlando in front of nobody. And, we'd say, well, why do we watch WWE? Because WrestleMania looks like WrestleMania, and their WrestleMania Bound for Glory would be in Detroit, and it'd be, in a half-empty gym. But, I mean, now, if you watch Impact Wrestling, and I've seen bits and pieces, I haven't watched full episodes, but I've seen clips, and it looks like it's running from a performance center the same. They got the same setup. They're really lacking. There is no difference between WWE and Impact Wrestling when it comes to the presentation. And, that used to always be the big deal. That obviously is the difference between indie wrestling and WWE is presentation. But in the landscape we're in right now, I mean, Impact Wrestling looks like everything else.
Yeah. I mean, from that perspective, Josh,
you know what I mean?
It's just not a deep talent. I don't think, I'm not dissing on any of those talents, but don't you think they're not as good as the WWE and AEW superstars, a lot of them? Do you think they're just kind of like minor league players, so to speak? Like,
I don't know. See, I don't think so. I think a lot of them, if they were in AEW, would be right in. I mean, look at Brian Cage, for example. When he came into AEW, he didn't flounder around to get his spot. He went right into the world title picture.
But here's the thing, though. He has that look where he could be in WWE. Let's be honest.
I mean, look at the Sami Callihans of the world. I mean, he's got a look that could fit. I'm not saying he's as agile as a Darby Allin. You know what I mean? But he definitely has that kind of, gothic look that could fit into a main event picture. More importantly, Tessa Blanchard, who was obviously just a champion, if she goes to WWE, I imagine she's in the women's world title picture immediately. Oh,
yeah, for sure. And actually, speaking of women's wrestling, I don't know if you've heard this, but Charlotte Flair she might be on her way back quicker than expected. But the elective surgery is being taken care of, or being, she's getting healed up, so to speak. But what I was reading is she might be doing it. She might be on a TV show. So stay tuned for that. I just found that news out today. I was reading on the internet, and I saw that she might be doing some television. I mean, she's got the name, she's got the look. She can play many different characters. I mean, we've seen her go heel, face. I mean, she knows how to talk. She's got a good aura about her. She's a star. So I wouldn't be surprised if she goes and does TV. But here's the thing. She's a Flair. So if she goes and does TV, you know she's not going to be too far from the old square circle. So I'm not trying to say she's going to leave WWE by any means, but I think she's going to have a lighter schedule with WWE is what I'm thinking. And she'll do some TV, some other appearances and things like that. So, I mean, let me get your thoughts on this. Do you see Charlotte Flair as somebody that can do really well on sitcoms, so to speak?
No.
Okay.
I mean, if I see it and it works, then it works. But I mean, I tried to watch. Big Show has done this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know if you saw. He's got the Netflix show.
Whoa, hold on. Back, hold on. Wait, you didn't like the show? The Big Show show? That was pretty good.
I just feel in the world of. I mean, it depends on what kind of character is she going to play. I think the problem with wrestlers is it's just hard for them to just fit right in. There's certain wrestlers maybe. I think Alexa Bliss could fit in a sitcom pretty well. But I mean, Charlotte Flair, because she's so muscular, I just can't see her as, the soccer mom driving kids to school, with slapstick.
She's probably going to play she's going to play a badass or some, I just think she'll maybe like a mean.
You're talking about.
Huh?
It's not a sitcom you're talking about. It's more like a drama.
I guess. I mean, I was just throwing a name out, just TV show, just a TV star. Do you think she could do that?
I'd have to see it first, but I don't see it.
I mean, she's a Flair. I mean, she's got
The Rock either. I wouldn't have seen it with The Rock until it happened, and it took The Rock a couple of years in Hollywood to really look at not being a wrestler and to be who he is today. So I think that's the thing. It's not just an overnight thing, because everyone looks at you in your first TV show, whether you're The Miz or you're Kane or any of these people, and they immediately just see wrestler, and it's hard to get past that.
I will say this, though. Let me, real quick, do you think John Cena's done a pretty good job transitioning?
Yes, but it took him a couple movies. It took him, and I'll tell you what, it took him to get into the comedic role. I feel him in the Marine role, again, just looked and saw wrestler. But as soon as his personality came out and, was it Knocked Up? Or not Knocked Up?
Blockers.
Yeah.
Blockers.
And he was in that other movie there with Amy Schumer.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
Yes.
Oh, I've heard stories about that. Actually, he was pretty funny in that.
Yes, it's not Knocked Up. It's
I know what you're talking about.
It's something along those lines. It's a comedy, and he played like a bit part. He played. He was in Daddy's Home with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell. He had a bit, and that's perfect right there. He's got like that bit character that's funny. But I guess it's until. A couple things in. If Charlotte Flair, right when she goes into being on a TV show, the first thing I'm going to think of when I look at her face is wrestler.
Do you still feel that way with The Miz?
What's that?
Do you feel that way with The Miz? Do you think he's just? Do you just look at him as a wrestler, or I see him as a reality star, too?
Yeah, I feel because what the TV show he is in is not necessarily a sitcom or a drama or a scripted thing. In The Miz and Mrs. and all that kind of stuff, I look at him like a reality star as well. But I don't take him seriously.
I heard he's done pretty well with Cannonball.
Again, but these are not shows where you have to take them seriously, where they're characters outside of. He's still The Miz in that show.
Do you think? Let me ask you this: Do you think Miz is a good actor from what you've seen on the movies that his Marine 17 or whatever it is now?
Yeah, I haven't seen all those movies in full, but there's a reason probably for that. I wouldn't, because again, if I see him in the Marine or any of the other movies, I can't get past that he's The Miz.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Okay.
So quickly, we're going to talk Slammiversary just quickly. I guess some points that are worth talking about to the non-Impact Wrestling fan. Moose, he's going to defend the TNA World Championship, and found out recently, kind of disappointment. So he is the TNA World Champion. Now, if you don't follow along, there's an Impact Champion and a TNA Champion. But so you don't get confused, the Impact Champion is the World Champion. That's the championship that Tessa Blanchard just had to relinquish because she wasn't making her appearances. Moose proclaimed himself the TNA World Champion, and he was actually supposed to bring this back for what I believe WrestleMania weekend. It was on the schedule. TNA was going to have like a reunion show, a show that was TNA themed. It brings it back to the original days of NWA TNA, the original colors, the original set, similar to what we saw with NXT In Your House, but TNA style. And at that event, he was supposed to win a King of the Mountain match, which is a TNA-specific match, to become the TNA World Champion. But because of COVID, because this TNA reunion show never happened, he just pretty much gave himself the belt. He's walking around with the championship, and he's going to defend it against Tommy Dreamer in an old-school, hardcore, unsanctioned rules match, a.k.a. hardcore match. See what Tommy Dreamer still got, up his sleeve at his age, taking on Moose. That is quite the dichotomy of wrestlers. I mean, Tommy Dreamer in an ECW-style match, that's traditional. But Moose, that's a big dude right there.
That's going to be an interesting match. I mean, I'll say this. I think Moose is going to prevail. That's just me.
Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan, who I just mentioned, they team up trying to win some tag team championships against Ethan Page and Josh Alexander. They are the North. I've seen Ethan Page myself a few times in Impact Wrestling as well as in Indie Wrestling. But how about that team of Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan?
I like it. I mean, Ken's still a bad dude in his 50s. What is he, 50s, 60s now? He's an old guy, but he still can go.
So two more things we'll talk about. Another guy who I've seen a bunch in 2CW Wrestling. He's part of the Rascals tag team, Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz. They're going to take on a tag team to be determined, as well as the championship match, obviously, is a fatal four-way match. Ace Austin, who's made his name for himself in CZW, independent wrestling. I've seen him around. I could definitely see that guy in AEW. Eddie Edwards is somebody who has been in Impact Wrestling for, it seems like, forever now, but he made a name for himself in Ring of Honor. Impact Wrestling, he is somebody, again, he went into AEW. I could see him right in a championship picture. But more importantly, the storyline in this is the TBA, to be determined. Who do you see this big, because they've been talking about it for months now in Impact Wrestling. They even talked about Drake Maverick. They had him in the background of one of the pictures. Obviously, we know he's staying with NXT. Who are you taking to make their Impact debut or their return this Saturday at Slammiversary?
Isn't it kind of obvious? I think it's going to be Gallows and Anderson. I think that's the obvious choice. I mean, what do you think, Jared?
What do you think about the tag team? You say the tag team is going to be Gallows and Anderson.
Yes, I do.
But in the championship matchup for the Impact Championship, it's going to be one former champion. We were talking about this. You were saying EC3. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's going to be EC3 because his contract, that non-compete clause, ends just before Slammiversary. So it's EC3. No questions asked.
All right. So, and obviously he was in Impact Wrestling forever before coming over to WWE and NXT and kind of being wasted.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can have a resurgence in his career. We'll see if he walks out with the Impact Championship this Saturday night. But this Sunday night, when you talk about ridiculousness, WWE's putting out extreme rules because of the COVID and everything going on. I don't currently know the slate of this. This is going to be live. I know they wanted it to be live. From last I heard, it probably isn't going to be live. But there's rumors that, Drew McIntyre's championship reign could be coming to an end. And personally, I feel he needs to hold on to that belt. I don't care how long it is, but he needs to hold on to that belt until fans return. Because what a wasted championship run that would be if his entire championship run was in front of no one.
I couldn't agree more. I don't think the whole Extreme Rules pay-per-view is going to be live. I know for a fact that the Wyatt Swamp match is pre-taped, so at least that's going to be taped. I don't see this. Do you see it being live? I don't.
Oh no, I don't see any of it being live. Obviously, we've got the eye for an eye match with Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins. How do you see that's going to work? Obviously, it's going to be a CGI. How ridiculous is this going to be?
I'm just going to say this: it's going to be a dumpster fire. I'll just leave it at that.
I say the Braun Strowman Bray Wyatt Swamp fight. That could be interesting. I think that could definitely be. That could be similar to like the Boneyard match, but instead of throwing them in a grave, they throw them in the swamp.
Yeah, we'll see. That to me, that's the only thing I'm actually going to watch the pay-per-view for. The rest of it, I could care less about, to be honest with you. It's just.
You think Sasha Banks and Bayley are going to leave both as women's champions as Sasha Banks takes on Asuka for the Raw Championship and Bayley defends against Nikki Cross?
Yeah, I think they do, and I think in a weird swerve because I've been reading reports that Kairi Sane wants to go back to Japan. I think Kairi Sane costs Asuka the match, and you have a little build up before Kairi leaves to Japan.
So you say Dolph Ziggler's going to lose to Drew McIntyre. Do you believe it's going to be this TLC match that a lot of people have said has kind of gone out there? They put on Facebook and WWE.com that it's going to be a tables, ladders, and chairs match. They took it down. Right now, the stipulation is "quote unquote" to be determined based off what Dolph Ziggler picks. But you think it's going to be a TLC match?
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be a TLC match, and we know Ziggler's really good at TLC matches, so it will be interesting. But again, we were just talking before. Drew McIntyre has to keep the title. I don't see him losing it.
In the Bray Wyatt Braun Strowman match, from what I'm actually reading, is this not for the title? Maybe you can correct me here, but from what I'm looking at, this isn't for the championship.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is either, to be honest with you. I think.
So I guess, yeah, it's not for the championship. So I guess anything goes. And then if it's not for the championship, then my pick for that is Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, if it is in fact a non-title match, I second that. But if it's a title match, then it's Bray Wyatt's going to go down.
Is MVP gonna be the new United States champion, or is Apollo Crews keeping the belt? The new belt that they debuted this weekend.
I hope they don't give it to MVP, but I'm just going to say because of the way they're booking things lately, MVP is going to be, he's going to be the title holder, and I think it's going to be because of Cedric Alexander is going to help him win. And I think you're going to see MVP's the pain business, or whatever the heck they're calling it, their little entourage they're going to start building. I think they're going to start building that.
I'm going to end this week's show by saying and talking about some things that we never thought we could have. But, just like everything in the world, Rolls Royces get old, boats get old, somebody dies in $1 million house, so the price comes down. Well, getting your hands on dating a WWE diva, probably the hottest WWE diva of all time, actually, every day it just seems like it's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm talking Sunny, Tammy Lee Sitch. She is currently wanted again. She was just in jail this past week for breaking a restraining order dedicated to domestic violence, eluding police, driving with a suspended license. She's had numerous issues. But like I said, her most recent boyfriend, and it's kind of strange that her most recent boyfriend in whom she's breaking the restraining order, she's trying to get near this guy. So it's not like the other way around where she's the coveted, celebrity and this nobody. This essential nobody, this non-celebrity is the one who wants to be like, hey, you got to get Sunny away from me. So, I was going to say, back in the day, you had to be Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart. To be able to be near Sunny. She was the hottest diva in WWE. I mean, look at me, Shawn Michaels, and the hottest guy who could have anybody, and all he wanted was Sunny. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Bret Hart, even though he was married, there was rumors that he was trying to have an affair with Sunny as well. And, at the end of the day, I guess if you just come across the right bar and you're okay that she put on a few pounds, she's single.
I mean, if the price is right, she does do porn, so.
Yeah, and there's definitely no doubt what kind of fun she is. But I guess the issue, even though she's a former WWE wrestler, all that money is gone. So she has the name, and I guess she still has the ability to maybe sign a few autographs at shows to make some money. But if you think you're going to get a sugar mama, it's not happening. I think the other way around. She's got a lot of issues.
She's making money off of the porn business now. So, she has like these, I was reading on Twitter that she has like these fan groups where she's got lots of subscribers to her XXX website. So,
and and to be honest with you, if you get in a relationship with Sunny, I guess you should be all right with that because there's nothing, sacred when it comes to being in a relationship with it that everyone in the whole world hasn't already seen or heard about her. So I hope if you're not somebody who's really jealous if you were to get in a relationship with her, because obviously she's already been out there a million times over.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. So it's anything like dating a porn star in this case. You have to expect that. So
all I'm saying is Sasha Banks holding out. Maybe she's got some stumbles along the way. In 10 or 15 years, She's just a regular girl at a bar. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to say what other wrestlers have said, though. I mean, I'll wait until it's consensual.
Don't do what our boy Sammy G did. All right, let's not do that.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying if she puts on a few pounds and is on the market, I might date Sasha Banks in the future, because I think even with a few pounds on her, you know what I mean, I think she'd still be a good-looking gal. I mean, and here's the thing. She's got the relationship with Snoop Dogg, so I don't think money will probably ever be an issue with her.
No. That'd be your sugar mama, Jeff.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Heel to Face podcast. Myself and K-Rock Jared. For Brandy Icebreaker Clements, next week we'll break down Extreme Rules, if anything noteworthy happened at Slammiversary, and whatever else is going on in the world of professional wrestling. Be sure to follow us on Heel to the Face on Twitter. Until next week, peace.